Warning, this podcast contains scenes of explicit nonsense and lore.
Previously on the Resident Evil podcast.
So Resident Evil 4's genius was the snappy reaction of an over-the-shoulder viewpoint and its mixture of responsive gameplay that wasn't like anything else before it.
In Degeneration, they did strip Leon of the one-liners, and that's why most people tend to refer to him as Captain Cardboard in that movie.
It's relentlessly mundane.
It always makes top 10 lists. It always has an impact, and I think that kind of speaks for itself.
Eden Regal, who played Sherry in RE6, and I'm telling you now, if she's back in this,
she's a coming.
Just stamp it Game of the Year already.
The Resident Evil Podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 110 of the Resident Evil Podcast. Busy base building around the forest zone of Raccoon City whilst contemplating our own existence. I'm Nick, better known as Neptune. Let's see who's joining us today. More studious than a graduate of the Umbrella Training Facility, it's the Batman.
Hello there.
He's a level 20 and he's just appeared on your radar. It's Stars TyranT.
Hello.
He's an unpredictable challenge. It's Romby.
Hello.
And have we just found his dream scenario? Constructing mansions, upgrading buildings on an Umbrella site. It's George Trevor, the game.
Yes, hello.
Coming up in today's podcast, we're going to be taking one final look at Resident Evil 9. That's right, we are just over 1 month away on the day of recording. Our 14th anniversary, actually. Ladies and gents, yes, we turn 14 today. This is our final look at Requiem before it comes out. We're going to be going and discussing everything that came out with the showcase, the new gameplay mechanics that have been revealed, as well as some final tin hat theories as well. And the good news for all you mobile game fans out there, we're going to be also doing a small discussion and review of Resident Evil Survivor Unit. There's some of us. We'll be catching up with the news and, of course, ending with Neptune's biohazard quiz. So let's start with the news. And, of course, the big news was we had our first Resident Evil showcase in quite some time, actually. I can't think of when the last big one was. But, yes, Requiem was shown in a little bit more detail, perhaps too little. We're going to be, of course, discussing a little bit more in more discussing more in the main discussion. But there was a couple of announcements within it, and I don't know about you, but have everyone placed their order for a brand new Porsche? Yeah,
I got to watch.
You're getting the what? You're going to get all the watch. Yeah. John, is your £250,000 Porsche on pre-order?
It is if it comes with a booklet explaining what Blue Umbrella is.
It was funny. So we'll talk about the showcase, not the content, but I don't know. I was worried when it was announced it was just going to be 12 minutes, and I thought, what's going to be realistically shown? I think we were discussing beforehand, perhaps they might even tease something else. We could get a bit of a character study. None of that. Instead, we got commentary from Porsche, commentary from Hamilton Watches, and a little bit of news about the Requiem going on to. I'm not very good with my PC. I always thought it was coming on PC anyway. Cloud stuffs, Steam. No, it's coming for cloud, whatever. It was coming on the cloud, which you can play, and they was talking about that. It didn't leave a lot of time for actual, gameplay showcasing. And sadly for you, Sean, nothing on Sherry yet.
I was all in, wasn't I?
You were all in. We were plugging it on the disc.
And to be fair, we're still here. We've not had it unconfirmed. So yeah, it was a little bit bare bones, wasn't it, lore wise? If you're looking for anything other than just a bit of gameplay, which I suppose they know. They never promised anything, did they? They never laid out an itinerary of what's in the show. But yeah, as I just heard you say, for 12 minutes, it was an already lean show, and to not rabbit on about the content at the end, the things we've joked about, it does represent a slight disconnect to the fandom and the wider fandom and Capcom at the moment, I think, because Resident Evil games are a very predictable bunch. You know, when they sign up to a showcase, they want something very specific, whether it's a legacy character, a return of iconography, and stuff like that. And I just never ever like to speak for the fans or anything like that, but I can pretty much put money on the fact that no one really cared about the product placement. Not that it exists, I'm not bothered that it exists. You know, these kind of things and brands exist in games all the time, but to spend some time on an already lean showcase for a car you'll never drive and a watch you'll never own, it's just, yeah.
That shoes are a little bit expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, a strange one. I'm trying to not be down on it because I think there was some widespread negativity on the showcase as the whole. I think what they showed looks great, which we'll go into in some detail. I was gutted that we didn't get a Sherry reveal, but that's more my expectations tripping me up than a failing of the showcase, if you like.
George, were you gonna?
No, I was only going to come in earlier because you really answered my question. How frustrated I don't want to. I have been awarded this podcast Best Negative Nancy by our listeners on Spotify, and thank you so much. But yeah, how annoyed am I allowed to be? Because it lets me so cold. Just such a monumental disconnect. I already have that in my life, being a Tottenham Hotspur fan, being so disconnected from the owners of my football team, and now just with Capcom, like you say, just putting so much of the content over to product placement. It just felt so cheap, and yeah, as I say, just completely left me bewildered as to what Capcom are doing with this series.
I wouldn't want them to reveal too much in terms of storyline. I'm also surprised that since that first trailer, we have not had a whiff of Raccoon City.
No.
You know, they made a big deal of, oh my god, is the RPD in ruins? And I wouldn't want them to go, oh, this is why you're going back, or to reveal. I want to be surprised in the game, but I am surprised that they haven't done anything else with it. No little hints of tints.
I think this is a really interesting final preview because I think of all the games we've done this for over the years, this is arguably one of the biggest releases that we know the least about. So for a final preview, we really are just spitballing more than sort of commenting on what we know. And that's actually kind of cool. I think that is great. You know, I don't want, when I say the marketing and things like that has been bizarre for this one, I'm not exactly unhappy with it in terms of they're not revealing everything too much, although there is always the case of that pesky launch day trailer, which always shows way too much. But I think by this point in Village, and I was just trying to think back to Village earlier, by the time we did the final preview for Village, I think we'd got all the lords named and things like that. You know, we knew quite a bit about that game, as much as there was still plenty of mystery left. But I'm pretty sure we'd had clear idea of who the villains were, and Miranda had been hinted at a lot, hadn't she? We'd obviously played the demo, which showed her in some capacity. Albeit from a distance, but we don't really know much about this. And like you say, the RPD thing's been hinted at, but for all we know at the minute, it could just be the location for the final boss or something. For what little we know, it might not even be a place you explore. It might just be a cutscene. Crazy.
I think you're right, and I think there's other elements that were a little bit. We had towards the end. It was like, what is Elpis? I was like, here we go, and it was just like, it's a secret. It was like, okay, well, that seemed odd as well. It's like, why even bother to say, give a kind of subtitle heading?
Because it just raises the excitement. I was actually glad they didn't say it, because when it popped up on the screen saying, what is Elpis, I immediately went to myself, don't fucking tell me.
No,
I think it's quite refreshing the way Capcom are clearly approaching this different. Like Sean said, we know very little about this. We're only a month away from release, and I think that's a wonderful thing. The showcase maybe wasn't as exciting as people wanted, but it still showed enough. We saw Leon's gameplay, we saw the different perspectives. They explained the inventory systems, some of the little gameplay quirks, the crafting system. And they're obviously keeping the story close to the chest, and whatever they're going to do with Raccoon City is going to be, a big surprise. So I'm quite happy that they're keeping it from us.
I agree, and I do think, I know people aren't very happy about it, and I think you pointed this out, Rob, that this is quite unprecedented for Capcom to not have a demo for Resident Evil game, but we have avoided, so far, I say, as I'm literally touching wood as I say this, we've avoided any potential data mining or anything like that. which is possibly the reason why I'd imagine they've not done one this time, given how clearly not watertight Capcom is at times with these kind of things.
Yeah, no, this is the first time since Resident Evil 2 Remake they haven't had a demo for any of the mainline games or remakes, so it's pretty crazy. And that I think it's very clear, like they said, we haven't got time and resources to devote to the demo, but they did a demo. They did a demo of Grace's section that they showed in multiple locations, and I suspect they probably could have publicly released that if they wanted to, but I think it's very much a choice not to.
Yeah.
Remake 2 had a demo though, Rob.
Yeah, no, I said since Remake 2. So, yeah, including Remake 2.
Oh, sorry.
Every Resident Evil game, Remake 2, 3, 4, Village, 7, they've all had demos. And they've also had sometimes tech demos too. You had Kitchen and Maiden, including...
I misunderstood you there, then yeah, you can chop that up.
The actual content, the type of content that we got, I enjoyed from the point of view that it wasn't, narrative revealing. It was kind of gameplay mechanic that excites me for the game. We'll come on to it because there's a couple of things that made me intrigued, to actually want to play in the gameplay. So that doesn't spoil anything narratively. I like that, and I think we got more of that going forward as well with future kind of releases, just showing us a little bit of kind of the way that different gameplay mechanics that can excite us to actually engage with the game, and leave like you say, leave the narrative almost completely unrevealed. That I did enjoy that type of content reveal.
And next bit of news is Resident Evil Village is coming to the Game Pass January 20th, and also the PlayStation Plus Deluxe, also I think about the same date. It's probably the 19th, I think. I think 7 was already on both platforms. I remember 7 was definitely added as if you had PlayStation 5 at launch, you got a bunch of games added to Plus for free, and 7 was one of them. So it's been on there, and you've had it permanently if you've had Plus since a PS5. The first year of the PS5. Otherwise, it's been added a couple of times, and this is the first time I think Village has been added. Obviously, a clear promotion coming up to the release of Requiem.
And we got they reconfirmed in the showcase the Switch 2 releases.
Yeah, I'm still confused by this. I mean, I get it because there's 2 and 3 have better connections to Village, but they've gone with 7 and I don't know, with Requiem, sorry, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But I guess also it doesn't really matter because it's all standalone in some respects. So you just play the ones you want to play, and you can play them from the same date as Requiem lands. So
that does finish all the news. We are now going to have an exciting look at Resident Evil Survival Unit. 4 million downloads, I believe, was the last drop from Capcom and Joy City about Survival Unit. 4 million people have seemingly downloaded this title and ventured into the survival horror world of The Operative and Kate Anderson.
It's probably like 4,000 people still playing it.
I don't actually know how many people are playing it, but this is as I said ages ago, this is the first mobile phone game in a long time for Capcom, at least certainly released in the West. And I've been playing it for quite a while. Batman, you've been playing it for quite a while. Sean, I think you've been starting it. I don't know about Rob and George. You've not told me. Have you been playing it?
I started it and I really disliked it, and so I stopped playing it.
Right. George, have you downloaded it? Have you taken that leap of faith?
I already got to the stage that Rombi was at when he said that he dislikes it. I was already at that stage before I even looked at it. So no, I didn't realize we would be reviewing it. I probably should have done it in such detail on this podcast. I have had no experience of it whatsoever, and I'm quite happy to continue with that.
Excellent. I mean,
So, no. Can I add one bit? Sorry. Give me Resident Evil Gaiden on Steam, and then you've got my interest. But
absolutely.
Sorry.
This was an experience. I think is probably the best way of describing it. I had no preconcepts of how these type of games work. I've never played them before in my life. I think the only mobile game I've had on my smartphone was Star Wars Hunters, which has been and gone. So I have nothing to compare it to. So I couldn't even tell you if this is a good type of this type of game. But what I do know is when I was telling my friend at work about this, I've just downloaded this new game, and I went through, this is what you do. He basically interrupted me and said, this sounds exactly like, I think it's called State of Survival or some other game like this. And I then looked at that and it absolutely was. This is identical, but with a Resident Evil skin on it. And I don't know how many hours I've put into it, but it's reached a point where it's just become laborious, and I've only been carrying on just so I've got more things to talk about in this little this little review. I don't know. Can we start with the positives? Because there is some positives. There is a lot of positives, and that is the beginning of the game. The beginning of this is, I would say it's great. I'm not going to overemphasize it, but the beginning part is actually quite good. And if the entire game was like it, I think we would be on to a little bit of a winner. So for people who don't know, George, if you don't know, you start the game akin to Silent Hill Homecoming, in the sense that you wake up in a hospital during the Raccoon City incident. You've got to get up, you've got to get out of your room, you've got to pick up files, you've got to read the files, you can turn them around, you then venture into the corridor and there's a zombie that does the zombie head turn. You pick up a gun and you try and kill him. You then got to then restore power, find some code, do some puzzles, read some more files to escape from the hospital. And you're like, okay, this is quite good. You escape from the hospital, you meet Claire. Claire does the kind of get down moment from Resident Evil 2. You then go to the RPD and you meet Marvin. You're then exploring the RPD, albeit the remake RPD, with fixed camera angles, Code Veronica-esque, Zero-esque camera angles. And you are doing what you would think would be an ideal mobile phone experience. Again, you're coming across zombies. You're picking up ammunition. You don't have that much ammunition, and you've got to try and aim and target at the zombies. And this is all looking very good, and you've got to find the medals to get out of the RPD, a little bit like what we do in the Resident Evil 2 game. And you go, well, this is great. And then the game says, how's the game? It actually, at that point, tells you to review the game. And you go, well, this is fantastic. And that's it. Because as soon as you're out of the RPD, you are then thrusted into the Arclay Forest, and you find a mansion. And apart from a couple more little missions where you go into the basement and into the bunker to restore power, it then turns into a completely different game to the first, 20 minutes that you've been playing. It stops being a kind of miniature survival horror game and becomes this base building where you've got, build up your resources, upgrade your mansions, add a lumber mill and a fuel center and a training center, and then the merchant comes along, and then Jill Valentine turns up with a helicopter, and then there's loot boxes and supply boxes, and then you're upgrade, and you're like, this is so different to what the game kind of perceives it to be at the beginning. And I don't like the fact that it makes you review it didn't make you review, but it kind of like it's trying to get good reviews from the early introduction, which has absolutely nothing to do with the game that you're playing. And I found that a little bit disingenuous.
That's mobile gaming to a T, mate.
Is it? I mean, this is the thing. I had no point of reference.
Sorry, I was going to say, it's funny you brought up that State of Survival thing. State of Survival did a Resident Evil collab before this.
It might not be that. It might not.
No, they did. It is State of Survival.
Oh, is it? Okay, right.
And I know. So you're 100% correct. And they did a Resident Evil collab, and as they've done with a bunch of others, and they've literally just went, "Oh, we'll just copy the homework." And
yeah. I mean, what you'll often find with like a lot of mobile games is you'll get an ad for one on like Instagram or something like that, and it'll look like it's got like a very addictive little gameplay loop and something like that. It'll be a very visually appealing mini, game or something to play. Whether it's like got some puzzle elements to it or shooting elements, like those endless shooters kind of things. Where it has the numbers on each side and you can add your troops or whatever. But the problem is when you download the game, that thing that they've based most of the marketing on, as they probably did with Survival Unit, is a short mini game in a much wider, like you say, base builder kind of thing. Often these games are marketed on their like very addictive looking mini games to get you to download it, and it might just be a very small, the thing they've basically put the entire ad campaign on might be a small 5-minute diversion and otherwise very dull base builder, and that's kind of what they've done here.
What did you think of the kind of beginning? But I'm not saying it's great. I mean, it was mildly enjoyable.
It's interesting because I played it on the BlueStacks emulator on the PC, which is basically just like an Android emulator, and actually you can use mouse and keys for it. So that was quite interesting. I wasn't restricted to the touchscreen, so I could actually like maneuver around like a proper game. Yeah, it was okay, that opening. It was quite interesting to see the remake RPD with camera angles. It was kind of cool. I got some enjoyment from that.
I just like the fact
that the guy looks like Ark.
It does look like Ark, yeah. I just like the fact you could pick up a file or an item and actually kind of 360 examine it and things like that, and there's clues on the other side. I thought that was a nice little touch. There is a little bit of kind of lore. I mean, it's a completely parallel universe before anyone says, "Oh, this doesn't fit," and it's like, no, it doesn't really fit. But that's John. Did you like the beginning bit? You're much further into the game than I am, and I'm up to my mansion is upgrading as we speak, ladies and gentlemen, to level 14. This has been a 13-hour upgrade. So you're a little bit further. I haven't had a decent bit of story for a while.
No, well, the story basically ends once the base building phase starts. Like yourselves, I thought the beginning hour was very good in terms of, I like the isometric perspective. I liked picking up the files and examining them. There was a few old school puzzles in there. The interactions with some of the classic characters were cool. They were nice and nostalgic. And then you move into the forest, and then Jill flies back to the city, and then you start building your base, and then it just turns into something completely different. The story ends. And I was ready to give up at that stage, but the first couple of times you upgrade your buildings and whatnot, it'll give you like a random lore drop in the form of a file. I think it was like the soldier's diary or something. And I thought every time you updated, something, the story would continue and you'd find out more about what's going on, but it doesn't. It just stops completely, and you've just got to complete all these optional objectives to try and fortify your base and build up your sort of squad of heroes to make them as powerful as possible. And my driving force now was just to see how far I could go in the game without spending any money on it whatsoever. It's got to the point now where to upgrade my mansion, it's going to take 7 days. And that's if I just don't pay anything. But obviously, if I wanted to pay money, I can reduce that substantially. Leon and Jill are exclusively behind a paywall. You cannot obtain them for free. It's taken me something like 50 days of consecutive play to unlock Carlos, and that was through sheer luck. And you can also unlock Ada as well, but again, that takes a hell of a long time. You do get, if you log in regularly and whatnot, you do get a load of free bonuses. The exploration game can be quite fun, where you sort of 3 characters are static. They've got different abilities, and like a horde of enemies come at you, and you've got to obviously kill them all before they kill you. And it definitely gets bonus points for including the likes of the T-091 from Dead Aim and the Hypnos TyranT from Survivor. It was lovely to see them new renders of those classic monsters.
Thanatos as well as
Thanatos, yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's just bare bones. I mean, base building games, it's just not my thing. It's just not my cup of tea at all. I think they did release a trailer a few days ago for a new single player map, so I think we'll get to explore more of what's going on underneath the mansion. And I think Chris Redfield, Billy Cohen, and Rebecca Chambers are imminently going to be released as new characters as well. But I joined the actual Survival Unit Discord, and most of the chat on there is people complaining, asking when they're going to get new content. And you can join alliances as well and attack other bases. And I don't really know how any of that works. I'm not really invested in that at all. But One thing I did notice was, go back a couple of months, all these alliances were huge. There were so many members. But because people have got sick of the lack of new content, a lot of these alliances have substantially gotten smaller or capitulated altogether, because people just don't have the patience to play anymore. It's clearly doing well if it's been downloaded 4 million times, but I think it's pretty evident that, the final product is not what people wanted from a Resident Evil mobile game.
I mean, I when I first picked it up and got to the base building part, I just had absolutely no idea what's going on. You know how when we reviewed Revelations 2 and I complained about there being too many mechanics in Revelations 2. I mean, this makes Revelations 2 look like Pong. It is so much going on in terms of points. And I keep asking you, John, questions about what's this for. So you've got, you gain experience points, and then you've got gems for currency. Then you've got, I still don't know what the rare earth materials are for. I don't know what I'm doing when it comes to that. And then, as you say, you've got the radar alliance mode where you can randomly go out and kill things for some reason. And then you've got the exploration mode, which I think if it just been an exploration mode on its own, that might have been a fairly decent freebie game that people would have enjoyed. But most of the time, I'm playing as if I was probably 9 years old, playing Remake 2 for the first time and not knowing what to do, so I'm just following the yellow paint to get the game. And by this, I mean, if you play it, and I play it on like easy mode or whatnot, I just wait until it says yellow, and it'll go, there's your gift, there's your thing, and then it says, what do you do next? And I'll click on this, I'm doing this. I just click the buttons like a monkey, because I just don't fundamentally understand why I'm doing all this. And it's got to a point where I'm in this loop of going, okay, upgrade the mill, upgrade the fuel depot, upgrade the lumber, the farm, upgrade this. You go, fine. Upgrade the hospital, upgrade the alliance center, upgrade the barracks, the shit. And you go through all this to get him from like level 12 to 13. You go, right, so something's going to happen now. I've upgraded everything by a level. And then it goes back to the thing. Upgrade your farm. And you're like, I've just upgraded it. And this loop is as dull as dishwater. And it's just constantly upgrading each one time and time again.
Quickly, that's the thing I'm annoyed with. Every time you sort of do a round of upgrading stuff, you should be given something like, a little bit of story to keep your interest, but it isn't. Like the story has literally stopped. Like I haven't even had a conversation with what's her name, Kate Anderson, the new character, since the base building's begun. There's just literally the only story I've got is maybe every 5 rounds a little speech bubble appears above Claire Redfield and you can have a little minor conversation with her, and that's it.
Oh, is that what that is? All right, I didn't even realise you could do that, right?
There's literally nothing, and I don't even think there'll be a proper ending. I mean, I've completed the exploration mode and all it did was send me right back to the start, but on a higher difficulty level.
Oh.
And you just repeat the same thing over and over again. So, yeah, it's strange.
I, by my own admission, don't play a lot of mobile games, but I have dabbled in things like Teppen and Marvel Snap and it's like Street Fighter Duel and stuff like that. And there is always this sort of collectible element to it of and numerous resources that don't really mean anything to you, and But this is one of the worst examples I can think of. You just literally, it's one of the most least interactive experiences I've ever had, because you just log on. You touch the screen a few times, set some time bars going, and then go off and do something else. You check on it, check back on it, all the time bars are still ticking away. Certainly when you're getting like where John is, where you've got like 7 days worth of these time bars to count down. It's just a strange thing. If these kind of things are making money in the industry, then we're doomed.
Well, I'll log on now. This is, I'll log on and we'll go through it together, ladies and gentlemen. As we log on to... I like the music. If you let the music play,
is very good. Yeah, and some of the character renders are nice. I just hope they're not AI. But can I just interrupt you, Nick, and said, how was the cold sweats when the book puzzle returned?
Yeah, there's some good puzzles. It did. No, it really did. I was like, oh god, can't get this one right. And some of the files when you're doing like there was a really almost like a meta file, where some bloke's complaining about someone putting the yellow crates down in the base, which are the ones you kind of smash open in Remake 2. He goes, what idiot keeps doing this? We don't need the yellow crates. And I thought that was quite funny. So there we go. Look, I've logged on. I got to get to mansion 14, level 14. I've got 1 hour 26 to go, so I can click on it. So George, for your preference, I can spend 1,158 gems to complete that now if I want. I've got 17,000 gems. I don't know what I'm spending on. Or I could use speed up resource and speed it up and complete it if I must. But the game actively wants you to spend money. All of the stuff that we've talked about so far, you could forgive it. But the game is trying to make you spend your cash, which I'd rather have...
Which is normal for all these games.
It is. I'd rather have spent 20 quid and have it complete. And I'm doing an advanced recruitment, free recruit. Here's Claire firing a flare. That rhymes. Here comes my loot box. What have I got? I've got a picture of Tyrell and Marvin and an experience point. I go confirm and go great. I don't really know what I've done, and I can now go to the farm and I can click the little link, the button, and I've got 209,000 wheat, some wood, some fuel, some metal. I can now pick up a supply crate, open that, and what a surprise, it's speed up time again. And that's all I can do now. That's it. I've just got to wait for the mansion to go. I can't do unless I want to go and do some exploration or some radar mode. That's it. And then you just do this, and then when my 1 hour finishes, I can come back, upgrade that, and then do it all again.
Character pictures you get, you use them to upgrade your characters.
Oh, in hero mode.
You need, like, say, 20 Marvin tokens to get them to the next level on the star. They can get up to 5 stars, and obviously the more you do them up, the more they can go out and get stuff.
My team is Claire, Tyrell, and Marvin, actually, so they're my little 3. I still need to unlock Barry.
I've got Barry.
I've got Barry.
Although, funnily enough, Barry, you've got legendary characters, which are obviously Leon, Jill, Ada, and Claire. And Carlos is a legendary character. Barry is only an epic character.
That's really scandalous, isn't it?
I think that is almost unforgivable.
With regards to like the microtransactions, just spending money to speed things up to then just have to do the process again is just like madness. Like I can understand why people want to spend microtransactions on things like cool cosmetics. Like if there was an entire like skin section for all the characters where you could unlock like Claire's appearance across the series. You know, if you wanted a Code Veronica outfit, it costs $2.99 or something like that. I could understand that a little bit because it feels like you're actually collecting something. You know, you've got your vast catalogue of characters and their appearances from the entire series, and collecting them could be kind of fun. You know, a lot of these games are like that. Like Street Fighter Duel, for example, has different versions of Ryu and Ken and Cammy and all that, and it's fun trying to get the one you want because some of the outfits are really cool and things. And just have microtransactions based around making time bars count down faster. It's beyond me. I'm sorry to our younger listeners who maybe enjoy this, but this is just I guess I'm out of touch.
Okay, here's just one example. Okay, I appreciate you've not played the game that much, so you are shooting in the dark, but this is a random VIP 4 add-on package, which you get 25,000 gems, 180 Jill Valentine files, 12 VIP points, 60 10k hero points, 4 construction speed upgrades of 1 hour, likewise research, likewise training, and 1 Alliance member gift package. How much in real money do you have to pay to get that? Have a guess.
$14.99.
Okay. Anyone else?
I've got an idea. I don't know. I think it was. But I think Sean's pretty close. I think it's about that.
$14.99. You said.
Yeah.
$49.99.
Yes, he absolutely mad.
50 quid. 50 quid. And considering it's taken me 2 weeks to upgrade my mansion, sorry, not 2 weeks, 6 days, for $49.99, I get to knock off 4 hours of that. 4 hours. It's ridiculous.
Tell us what we're missing, listeners, dear listeners.
Yeah.
Tell us what we should. I don't know.
I think the worst thing. I don't even know what's happened to poor old Mortem. He seems to be told there's a distant storyline going on about Saint Vale, and I can't get involved with that because I think that's almost is that exclusively a Alliance mission?
I think it is, and you only get picked for stuff like that if you're like contributing to the Alliance and helping out, and your characters are powerful. And if you're not really interested in doing that sort of thing, then that's a big portion of the game you're going to miss out on.
I think that's quite disappointing because you get little hints in the game when you click on like the quest thing. It tells you, and it goes, the attack on St. Vale's been successful. And you're like, is it? I'm mildly intrigued in that bit, but I don't know. It's a funny old game. If they kept it like at the beginning, I think more people would have been interested. It wouldn't have made the money. But as Sean, suggested, you could just have microtransactions for, as I said, for skins or something like that. The exploration mode is fairly decent. It's quite tactical. You can do the leveling up system, because I died loads of times and think, oh, what have I done wrong here? Maybe tweak some of the characters, increase the levels, and then gone, right, no, this time I'm gonna put I don't know, Tyrell there. He's gonna make sure I've got the turret ready. He has a special turret weapon lined up, ready to take on Thanatos. So I'm gonna use that bomb. There's stuff you can do with different characters. So that, quite simplistically, is a better game than base building. And I think if that was a much bigger, part of it, I think people would have enjoyed it a little bit more than what this is. It's just tedious. And after this, I probably won't play much more of it. I'll be honest. I've been playing it just for
that hasn't stopped non-cannon corner getting the runaway trains well away there, isn't it, Nicholas?
Well, no, that's a fair point. Non-cannon corner has kept me intrigued because John mentioned the soldiers' files. Because if you don't know, the base building bit actually takes place at pretty much the same time that the bomb is supposed to hit Raccoon City. So it's like dawn. He gets there and starts building the base. So I don't know what the plan is, but the soldiers' files are all dated in January and February and talk about how they've been, all these survivors have been found and they've been working as a team. So that must be after the 1st of October 1998. So the January and February is first dates we've ever had of anything happening and confirming to take place in 1999. That's quite intriguing. I'm just going to ignore the obvious fact that the city's still standing. Big thing to ignore, but one must. And if you some of these folders, the name of this chap, the operative, is probably called Anthony. So there you go, your exclusive tidbit there.
Anthony Thompson.
Anthony Thompson, Ark's brother, yeah. But that I find quite interesting. Just some of the files about that. But I mean, it's not supposed to be related to the normal timeline, even the remake timeline. If you see two separate ones, so it's a funny old beast, this game. But how far are you going to go? How far are you going to carry on?
Well, I'll carry on as long as I can. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not spending hours and hours and hours on it. I basically get to work in the morning when I've got free 10 minutes. I'll just log on and upgrade everything.
Yeah.
And then I'll just check on it a couple of times throughout the day and do a couple of missions so I get my free rewards, and that's it really. I know they're going to release another single player map, so it'll be interesting to see how long they support the game for and what else they do add to it, because they need to add some new game modes or something, because it's just far too repetitive as it is at the moment.
I think the thing that makes me laugh the most is the fact that the isometric grid-based combat system is essentially like 95% autonomous anyway. Characters will automatically attack and things like that, and they even have the audacity to put an auto button in the top left-hand corner just in case you want that interactivity to be even less. It's such a lazy game. I literally don't get it. It just doesn't. It baffles me.
Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. Our little review of Survival Unit. We'll keep people updated if there's anything that, as you said, when the maps come in, I'm sure we'll make brief reference to it in the news. See if anything changes, and we'll check in, John, on your progress. See if you've been tempted to spend those gems and some your hard-earned cash. That does finish, therefore, our quick review of Survival Unit. We now turn our attention to our final preview of Resident Evil Requiem.
Think I want a second opinion.
Yes, as Sean mentioned earlier, we are in the final stages of the launch for Resident Evil Requiem. We are very excited. As you said, we haven't had too much to discuss. We can't get our teeth much into the lore, but we're going to have a go. We're going to have a couple of theories and whatnot. But I think in celebration of the recent showcase, I want to talk about the new stuff. And I want to start off with looking at the gameplay mechanics, the inventory system, and perhaps what aspects everyone's looking forward to. What bit are we concerned concerned with as well, because I've got some points I'd like to raise about that. But from the positive side of things, the gameplay for Grace and those mechanics, I think, look really, really exciting. Grace's game especially looks to be basically Ashley's bit in Remake 4, but with a whole lot more going on. They've revealed that the main gun is simply called Requiem, and it's got special bullets which seem to be extremely scarce, and they made that point very clear in the trailer. And it looks to be very stealth heavy, and adding this element of crafting by trying to obtain blood samples from the undead, which you then need to be able to create more resources. I wonder if that's almost a response to from feedback maybe of 8, whereby you're picking up all the kind of metal pieces and they're just scattered around, killings of the villagers or the whatever they're called, and that was too easy. Whereas this, they thought, well, no, we're going to make you work for it. If you want to get more resources, you're going to have to make that decision about how you kill them. I just hope there's lots of different ways of killing, because that weapon doesn't appear to be something that you can rely on in terms of ammunition. And listen to that kind of introduction. Limited ammunition, skulking around in a kind of mansion-esque hospital, conserving where you're going. And we know from the demo, you've got this kind of light switch mechanic, if you want to call it that, for protection against the big blob Lisa Trevor thing we think it is. There's lots going on in Grace's gameplay, and I can't wait to see how well that's going to work. And that is certainly my highlight from the showcase. But George, you said earlier you were quite excited. I suspect, knowing you, that it's going to be the Grace's gameplay as well that you seem to be a bit more attracted to.
I knew you were going to come to me first. Look, why can Capcom not have the confidence just to make a fully fledged survival horror game? Because you're absolutely right. So much about the Grace gameplay really infuses me. Just everything, the color palette, the enemy design, the atmosphere. I'm really intrigued by these new gameplay mechanics. I want this all as just like one emotional experience, and I've got no problem with having this other character that's going to pursue certain other chapters. Maybe they're going to be intertwined, but to have this huge jarring.
Well, that's a big point. I think we'll come on to that a bit later about how Leon interacts with that. But if we just focus on the Grace's element, okay, nothing but positiveness, things to say about that. But I just would like, with the reservation, the objection, I wish that was the whole game in its entirety, and then we could just experience that whole emotional experience. Yeah, a lot to be intrigued about, but yeah, why can't I have those gameplay mechanics on the other section of the game? That's very frustrating. Definitely be playing those sections in first person. I think that really will lend itself well to that gameplay. You're going to do you're going to do first person,
and then I can see why in the other sections it would be probably better to have that over the shoulder third person perspective.
Rob, what about you? Were you intrigued by what you're looking at Grace's element? Anything that stood out for you?
I'm kind of conflicted, because I feel like some of it looks great, but I'm also worried that it's like this idea of just artificial difficulty, if that makes sense. Difficulty is probably not right. But artificial horror elements by going, well, we'll limit you to this and make you do these things, which will ratchet up the tension, because now you can't just avoid enemies, you kind of have to get engaged with them in order to make this gameplay work. And without playing a demo and without knowing what it's going to feel like, I'm uncertain. That doesn't mean it's a bad thing. I just don't know. I just really don't know. I see it like injection thing, which made the bad guys explode. Is kind of weird, and it's quite a gory game, which is fine. I don't doesn't bother me, but I don't know how some people might feel about that. But I'm very interested in this way of the thing that was in the showcase about zombies doing their routines. Because that is a very Shinji Mikami went down that route with Evil Within, and also that's a very George Romero kind of thing of like zombies that retain some sort of like memories of their past life kind of concept, and but using it against them, and I'm kind of interested about that. People have commented on the fact that like all the zombies look like kind of horrified, like they're in shock, scared, crying, which doesn't make me feel any better about dispatching them as either character, to be honest, especially Leon when he's like so brutal. Yeah, I don't know. It's kind of an odd one. I'm kind of conflicted about the whole thing much the same way, but I mean not in a bad way. Just I don't know what to expect other than what's been shown, and how it plays is different than how it's shown sometimes. So
okay, we'll come back to that. John Batman, what was your early take on the Graces element?
Yeah, I think it looks really good. I'm with Rob. I'm really interested in this notion of the zombies following traits from the past lives, like the custodian that was cleaning the mirrors and the chef zombie that was still cutting meat. I hope they really sort of go further with that, and I think it just adds an extra element of fear that the zombies have this sort of human element to them, more so than they ever have in the past. And another thing that's impressing me is the environments as well. I think the Road Hill Chronic Care Centre looks an extremely interesting environment to explore. And I like my Resident Evil games to have that sort of investigatory element to it, and I think that's what we'll get with Grace, because she is an FBI agent. Her sections are going to be slower, there's going to be fewer enemies, and we'll really, be able to explore these environments in detail and sort of pick apart what's really happening in terms of the story, and then we'll go to Leon, which will give us the more traditional aspects we expect from more modern Resident Evil games. But yeah, all positive for me so far. I think I'm with George. I think I will play Grace in first person, and then when we get to Leon, I'll switch to the traditional third person. But just another thing on George's point, I get where he's coming from, but I also agree with Capcom in the sense that they've been very clear that they just think Leon is not a popular fit for horror anymore. And I kind of agree with them. I'm not too bothered about the sort of 50-50 aspect. I think this is going to be a big game, and I think both sort of sets of fans are going to be happy with the final result.
Can I just quickly add, though, that I think that, and it was done a lot better with Resident Evil 4, you can have that kind of action horror element. Leon, I just would like, I can get with the action, but I won't go into detail, we'll get to this, but just more intelligent gameplay. And you're right, it was so gory and so over the top, and it was just like Jackie Chan, karate, which is so superficial. And if they are going to have that element, can they not just present that character in quite frankly, just a more intelligent, more mature way, more engaging way than just him constantly making, snide, smart aleck quips and all this blood and kicking all over the place. I'm sure in the past we've had Resident Evil doing action in a much more nuanced way, and I just think the series deserves that.
No, I think there's a point. I think also that they are adding some story to Leon in terms of what he's hiding and things like that. So I think that there is scope there, to perhaps his wit and one-liners are almost like a countermeasure to the whatever's going down with him. But Sean, what about
defensive mechanism?
Absolutely. And if they play that could work. Sean, what about you, my friend? Where are you with Grace's element? Because I think there's been a lot of comments as well about how Leon has potentially hijacked Grace's game. We're not sure. This is the thing. And again, a comment to you, George. We're not sure. Obviously, we don't know how much. Is it a 50-50 split between Leon and Grace? Is it 75-25? We don't know. So I think we have to reserve judgment as to having that consistent feel in place. But regarding what we've seen, what do you feel that's valid?
I don't know. I think that's just where the marketing is clearly gone, because they want a hook that's going to get people on board. The problem when you've got a series like Resident Evil, and you've got, we're talking about a series that has some of the strongest legacy characters in all of the video gaming landscape. These characters are beloved, and so when you start a new title with a new protagonist like Ethan, we've seen firsthand how that doesn't always work for everybody. And those legacy characters are really what people get attached to. They want to cosplay as them. They want to be them. They're our heroes in a sense. And I think Leon was always going to appeal to that side of the fandom, and I think for that point, I think it's done its job, if you like. But yeah, I mean, do you remember that romantic time about 6 months ago when this was just an Alyssa and Grace Ashcroft game? You know, I don't even think Alyssa was mentioned in the showcase. She's just been, you know, fired into a cannon. It's put into a cannon and fired into space, hasn't she? She's just so. But I just think that's the showcase was clearly focused on Leon, so that's what they wanted to show off. I don't know whether that indicates anything with regards to the split, and with regards to what I think about Grace's gameplay. I think it all looks great. I think there's one thing you'll not get from me is any kind of fear or doubt that the game is going to be anything other than exceptional, because as I said during the review of Remake 4, Capcom have got so good at this now they can do it in the sleep. You know, even the missteps like 3 Remake are still blindingly fun to play games. You know, so from a gameplay point of view, I have no doubt that this will also be fun as well. The key issue for me is we've been here before where they've tried to do a hybrid experience of like a slower burn survival horror meeting the hyperkinetic action, the more recent titles. And I suppose the thing for me, and the deal breaker for me, will be balance. Because what Resident Evil is very good at, Resident Evil 4 Remake's very good at this, is a gameplay loop. You really get into the groove with Leon, and the sequences where you get into like a rhythm of headshots, melee, and you get like a pace to it, and you become dialed in. That's not going to work as effectively if every chapter or every couple of chapters the game slams the brakes on really hard and then forces like a stealth section on you in terms of Grace or anything like that. Stealth sections can be fun. I love a lot of stealth games, but sometimes a forced stealth section when you're in the midst of a different kind of mindset sucks. I don't think this will. I have every faith in them that they'll have finally got the balance right, but it is just worth saying that we've been here before, and although they did push in the showcase that Grace's gameplay is like Resident Evil 2, Resident Evil 7, all they've shown of it so far is a slightly slower Leon campaign. She's a bit more slower, she's a bit more steady. I would have liked to have seen like a few maybe puzzles or inventory management. That would have really nailed the sort of classic 2 and 7 kind of feeling for me. But that's just all nitpicking. I think the game will be great from that point of view. And oh boy, have I got some things to say when we cover the Leon gameplay.
I think Koshi Nakanishi has said that in interviews that he's compared the sort of gameplay split to Revelations 1. So I think we are looking at just one campaign where we'll switch between characters. And the impression I've got with what we've seen so far is there seems to be 3 main locations. You've got the Wrenwood Hotel, then you've got the Rhodes Hill Chronic Care Centre, and then you've got whatever Raccoon City is. And we seem to visit these locations first as Grace, and then we transition to Leon. And the showcase hinted at sort of Crimson Head type changes between the enemies. That could go some way to explaining the more action orientated gameplay for Leon if Grace is down in like the slower zombies, and then they go through some sort of change, you know, and reanimate when Leon later gets to that location.
That would actually be similar to Revelations 2 as well, whereby
exactly,
things you do in Claire's game affect the undead in Barry's game.
And that could add a bit of strategy as well, you know, if you think, right, I don't want to take these zombies out because they'll turn up later, more dangerous when Leon gets here. Could bring back that sort of little strategy element that you have in Remake 1 when you're sort of planning your route around the mansion to not try and create too many Crimson Heads for later.
That's a good point. I agree with what Sean said as well. I think the balance is going to be the most vital aspect of this, and that change of pace needs to be so well managed that you don't stop looking forward to. You don't want to. You don't want to go, oh, Grace section or oh, Leon section. You want it to flow quite well, and you want to be able to continue onwards, not feeling that I've got to lumber myself through it. The reason why I don't think that will happen is because Capcom have shown in recent years how very good they are at the stealth sections in the game. So even things like Mia's videotape sections are very scary and very well managed. And then Sherry's RE2 is pretty good. But then with Village, you've got the House Benny Evento stuff, which is incredible. And then again in Shadows of Rose as well, that bit's brilliant. And then the expansion of the Ashley section in Resident Evil 4 Remake was, for me, one of the series highlight. I thought that was phenomenally good. So I think if they bring all that together and are making essentially a feature-length version of all those ideas, I think we could be onto something brilliant for Grace's section. I agree with George. I think it might, it might be a shame when we come back to review it and go, I just wish the entire game was like that. And, I think that could be a valid comment to make. But Sean's also right with regards to the fact that we've been here before. So younger listeners may not know, but back before Resident Evil 6 came out, they actively commented that Leon's campaign in Resident Evil 6 is traditional survival horror. And then you've got Chris and Piers is going to be like Resident Evil 4 and 5, and then Jake and Sherry's is going to be this kind of weird hybrid with being Stalker, like the Nemesis who chased the whole time. And that was a lie, in my opinion. There's so little difference between all three scenarios that you can't actively go, oh, I fancy a survival horror experience. I know, I'll play Leon's chapter in Resident Evil 6. No, it's just not going to happen. I verge on caution, but from what we've seen so far, there does look to be a clear distinction between Leon and Grace's campaign, and for me, that's good. I just hope, as I said, there's that balance that we don't want to feel that either Grace's section is overstaying its welcome or that there is that big disconnect between them. And I like John's idea. I think that's a good idea. If there is this kind of time gap between them, that does make sense. I don't think we're going to be at the Wrenwood Hotel a lot. I've got a feeling that is the tutorial.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that is just a couple that will be, get to grips, move, fire, shoot, Grace captured.
I think your sole objective there will be to get that file that Alyssa hides behind the painting. And once you do that, it'll trigger a cutscene, you get captured, and then you move on. Yeah, I think it'll be very, very, very short.
Yeah, we'll see. But I think the balance is going to be the key for me, because I've often said I find Remake 4 a very good, fun game. And Sean, again, mentions the gameplay loop, which is engaging and fun. It's not my cup of tea for survival horror. And Leon's bit is, on the face of it, not quite what I like with these type of games. In some ways, I'd probably prefer it like what we did in Village, and when you have kind of Chris coming in, all guns blazing. I didn't mind that as much because it's a short period. It's 20 minutes. It's Chris, is what you're supposed to do, and you kind of get back to the more challenging elements a bit later on.
I mean, even more than that, Village was actually a game that kind of did it. It kind of attempted what Resident Evil 6 did again, using each of the four lords.
Yes.
So like the castle is your classic Resident Evil 1 area with like very gorgeous hallways and corridors and themed keys and, an almost organic way of going through it, although it's just all smoke and mirrors because it's very linear when you break it down. Then you've got like the raw PT style horror of Beneviento. You've got like a set piece with Moreau, and then all action section for the Heisenberg factory. So you got very distinct gameplay types there that were branched off away from the central village in its own sort of little segment, if you like, and that kind of worked. I thought Village
just
was
about
good
for
that.
Just about for me, yeah.
Yeah, but I think everybody had their favourite section in Village, and depending on what you were after in that game, whether you liked, your raw horrors like Beneviento, or if you like your action packed, it did kind of cater to things, and it yeah, like you say, it just about pulled it off, I think. But if you're going to have split characters, I think it's all the more harder to juggle, because, like I say, it's just about getting balance, and that's my only real concern as we anticipate the game next month, is whether they'll nail that balance.
Yeah, I agree. So let's have a chat about kind of Leon, but can we lead into Leon chat by first talking about the inventory systems? Because that kind of leads from Grace into Leon as well. So it's an interesting idea to have two different inventory systems. So Grace having the traditional RE7, RE2 boxes, if you want to call it that, and then Leon having the RE4 attaché case. I find that quite interesting, and
I think it's neat personally. Yeah.
Do you like it? Yeah,
I think it's cool. Yeah,
it's straight. This would be the first time something like this has ever happened. In Resident Evil 2, I mean, it's not the it's not the be all and end all, but it's an interesting concept to have introduced. And I do wonder generally whether this is Requiem is looking like Rob's comment the game. You know, Rob's
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you're going to say. I know what you're going to say.
Rob's general comment has been, Resident Evil's for no one and everyone. It doesn't, that kind of thing. This is basically going, okay, we get it. You like survival horror, we're going to put that bit in it, and then the other half, you like your RE4, we're going to put it all together. Everyone's happy, yeah? I don't know.
And if
Rob,
there's people out there who like your fucking ink ribbon saving, well, we'll cater to you too.
Yeah, exactly. Do you see it like that, Rob? I felt this as a personal message to you.
Yeah, I mean, I've been saying this for so long because inherently it's that case where like every game seems to have been one or the other, and now they've gone, right, we'll just throw it all in one and see how it sticks. I'm going to be very interested to see how the reaction is, because I don't, if you want my actual answer, I don't think this is a good idea, really. I think
Okay.
inherently, I think inherently it throws that balance off, and it's the same reaction we're seeing to like why you've got this comment, does Leon's announcement and attachment to this game overshadow Grace's after what you've already shown? Well, it's probably the same thing, because those same gameplay elements inherently are part and parcel of that, right? Like, so Leon's action gameplay, his attaché case concepts, like all these things differently bode to a Resident Evil 4 style direction of gameplay, whereas a traditional survival horror is going to be slower paced, item boxes, that sort of thing. Like, these are two very different game styles, and it's really going to come down to exactly as you guys were talking about before, the balance going back and forth between these two is what's going to make this live or die. If they strike that balance, then great, it'll work. But if they don't, it's going to fail miserably. Like there's pretty much no middle ground to this. It's either going to work or it's not. That, as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, but it definitely does come down to that whole thing of like there's two different, very distinct audience types, and trying to cater to both for sure.
You want to lead us in then about what's your views with Leon, his gameplay? How do you see that, and the return of Resident Evil 6 style melee?
I mean, inherently, I've never hated the Resident Evil 6 gameplay. It just was a little bit clunky, and it was very much ahead of its time. If they've found a way to try and balance 4 and 6 into a way that feels smooth, then I'll be happy. And again, this is not having a demo of gameplay and just having to go off the visuals of it to give you a style is very different than what it'll probably feel like, or could be anyway. So I'm not opposed to it, but again, I'm just still conflicted over this idea of the two styles, I guess. So it kind of makes it kind of also a hard thing to judge. I mean, it's pretty brutal. I mean, I was talking about this earlier when I alluded to it earlier in regards to Grace's exploding enemies. Leon's like smacking heads up against cabinets and shooting enemies at close range with guns pointed in their mouths and stuff. It's very much a stylistic choice, and I'm very interested to see how the general reaction is to it overall. It's a return to form, I guess, for a franchise that very early in its early days would let you decapitate half a zombie with a shotgun blast. It's something that's kind of gone by the wayside, and now we've gone back to zombies. They've in a way they've gone, well, we can go with an ultra gory version of enemies and also have them using weapons, and we can cut them in half with chainsaws and all this sort of stuff, and we can meet all these elements of Resident Evil into one game. So I don't know, it's particularly interesting. The way that Leon will become more interesting is whatever is going on with him, and obviously we've all alluded to the fact that he's got something going on with his neck. One of the most recent images, which I've actually put in our recording sessions chat if you haven't seen, is about one of the watch promotions. Is the clearest look of his neck you've seen. So if you have a look in there, it's
yes.
and it's pretty clear. And I'm like, is this going to add a weakness element to him? Is this going to be something he's going to have to battle against? Is this going back to that idea of an infection and something related to Resident Evil, the original version of Resident Evil 4? These could add interesting gameplay wrinkles and storyline elements that could change things dynamically. And they've obviously not alluded to any of this either. They've shown Leon the kind of like peak action. Is he going to continue to be like this throughout the entire game? Is things going to get worse for him and harder to do, and it becomes more of a survival game? And that's how they've figured out a crux on how to make Leon not the atypical survival horror, to more of a survival horror protagonist rather than the action man he'd become by weakening him. I don't know, but there's always that possibility. I'd be very interested to see if they go down that path. So that's my only other thought about it.
Yeah, I mean, Leon himself hasn't really had much of a story for a while, and most of it tends to stem around Ada. I do wonder if by having this angle in it, that is a sign that Ada may not be in it if he's having some kind of infection. John, are you backing the Gaiden is canon campaign?
No, I'm afraid
No.
not. I don't think there's going to be much new with Leon in terms of his gameplay. I mean, we've seen it before. If I could be slightly nitpicky about what we saw from the showcases, some of his moves do seem a little bit over the top. But I think Leon gets a bit of a rough ride in certain respects, because I know he's like the poster boy of the series, but if you think about it, since the original Resident Evil 4, if you discount the remakes, in terms of games, he's only appeared in Dark Side Chronicles and Resident Evil 6. So this is the first time, he's appeared front and centre in a new title that isn't a CG film or a comic for a hell of a long time. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into the story aspect of things. But in terms of his gameplay, yeah, I don't think we're going to see much of a evolution from Resident Evil 4. I think it'll be more or less identical.
George, what's your early impressions of the gameplay for Leon?
I don't want to, throw all my rotten eggs at him in one basket, because hopefully there's more to it, and maybe we were just kind of shown the kind of, the headline, highlights, because I just found it gratuitous, over the top. Perhaps that's what it's meant to be. I'm hoping to see a little bit more nuance, even if it's just in files that I come across during that gameplay. It was a bit unfortunate, because I saw, the section with him in the hospital, and I just thought of other survival horror IPs that take place in hospitals, and just the emotional experience you get from the atmosphere they're in. But there's like no time or space to kind of enjoy or feel the atmosphere, because from what I saw anyway, it was all very fast-paced, superficial violence, gratuitous. But like I say, hopefully that was just kind of like a loud highlight, and there'll be a little bit more thought and considered gameplay, I would like to think. But yeah, we'll see. And just going back to, I mean, one thing I am really looking forward to is the zombies with kind of holding on to a semblance of their personalities. Because I remember years ago, I think it was Kenichi Iwao, one of the writers of the original game, said that was his vision for the zombies, when he took over the lead writing from Shinji Mikami, and kind of brought it more in line with the the Resident Evil that we got. Yeah, that was something that he alluded to, that he wanted his zombies to kind of have a reflection of their humanity, reflected back in the behaviors that they were doing as zombies. So even if that alone just gives a little bit more depth to the Leon gameplay and the enemies that you're defeating, then that's something to look forward to.
Yeah, I do want to talk about the zombies. But Sean, what about you? What's your early take?
Just briefly touching upon that thing with the zombies, like there's a very striking image of it. It's the like the blonde-haired zombie that Leon kills at point blank range. Someone has actually zoomed in, and there's tears streaming down her face, and the concept that there could actually be a semblance of that person's consciousness trapped inside a body they can't control is chilling as hell, when you consider that Leon's just dispatching them en masse. Like what if there's a point where he finds out that these people are actually still living within this body they can't control? There's still something alive in there, and they have the only thing they can control essentially is their tears, and they're just Leon's just basically executing them. It's quite a chilling thing to explore.
And you'll know we've had that in Last of Us, haven't we, Sean?
Absolutely, yeah. Well, with regards to Leon's gameplay, ladies and gentlemen, I can't remember the episode, and I can't even remember which game it was about, but we talked about the progression of how the RE Engine games had gone since 7, and we were noticing an increasing trend in leading back to the sort of more action-packed kind of stuff with Remake 4. So you can imagine my shock and awe and delight, if you will, at seeing Leon's gameplay throwback to Resident Evil 6. We've now got context-sensitive finishers, we've got, melee stuff, all kinds of craziness going on, and we've kind of come full circle again, haven't we? We're right back here again. I don't think there's going to be sliding or any kind of crazy stuff like that this time, but there's clearly an idea to progress some of the mechanics and stuff that existed in 6. It seems like a hybrid of Remake 4's gameplay and Resident Evil 6. And he's even at one point in the one of Leon's moves almost looks like he does a quick shot. So I'm not sure whether that mechanic's back as well. But again, echoing the thoughts that I had with the Grace's gameplay, it's going to play really well. Whether it's the kind of gameplay that you want from a series is up to you, but Leon's gameplay, if nothing else, will be, I don't doubt, smooth and a lot of fun. So no notes there, I'm afraid, for me, really. I think it's going to be great, and I just think it's hilarious that, as someone who's sort of held up Resident Evil 6 as being an absolutely bonkers bananas experience that I really enjoy, to see it kind of have a throwback to that, I just find it hilarious. I want an apology, please.
Yeah, I'm intrigued by the angle of weapons in this game, and that kind of leads on to the idea that these zombies that you're kind of going around carry on doing their job. I wonder if that element is almost exclusively reserved for Grace, and as you say, when you get back to it with Leon, they're just going full berserk. I like the idea that they can just go pick up a chainsaw. There seems to be a lot of chainsaws around, at least two within a very small area, and it's not. It looks like any of them can pick it up. I think there's at least two zombies that picked up a chainsaw in the showcase. So I don't think it's just like a chainsaw zombie. I think anyone can pick it up, and that'd be a really good advancement of the AI. If that's the case, I find it quite funny with the gore element, and it is over the top. I don't mind it. I think that harkens back to it's almost like a Dead Rising nod, which is obviously ridiculously over the top. But the idea of being able to pick up the chainsaw and just slice it through a zombie is quite satisfying, and I think you're right, Sean. I think it's going to be fun, and we've got to remember in today's gaming world, which is very fragmented, and lots of games come out and they're borderline unplayable on day one, and you've got to wait for patches and improvements. You just don't get this with Capcom. This game is going to come out perfect for what they want. As it sort of says, it may not be what you want in terms of playing a game like this, but it's going to be smooth. It's going to control well. There shouldn't be any major bugs, game-breaking glitches, none of that. It's going to be a solid experience. You're going to put your hard-earned cash down, and you're going to be able to play it from beginning to end without a zombie floating off into the background or a car disappearing from the scene. It's just going to be a polished product, and it seems odd to say this is a good thing because this is the standard. This is how it always was, and it's only in kind of recent times where game companies are releasing products earlier than they should. So I give Capcom some credit that even if I don't personally like Leon's element of the game, I know it's going to be fun, because if it plays like Remake 4, a game that I enjoyed as a kind of action title, I thought it was sensational. I just want to feel the dynamics between the two campaigns. I'm intrigued to see if it is like a zapping mode. We've already mentioned perhaps a bit like the Afflicted and Rotten bit with Revelations 2. I hope they go a little bit more. I hope if Grace gets the option of leaving health packs or something like that to Leon, she doesn't know it, but the prompt will come up, do you want to take the first aid spray or do you want to leave it here? That will be a nice little touch. And you go, why would I want to leave it here? But then you think, perhaps I do want to leave it here. Little things like that I think would be great. And I think there's a good, if they're going to do this, there is a good opportunity of introducing a modern day zapping system, something that Remake 2 should have done.
Yeah.
That didn't.
Yeah, I agree. I will also say as well that, although I hear the comments of the violence, I don't think it's that much more stepped up than what the kind of stuff you saw in Resident Evil 6, really. I just think what they've clearly worked on is the blood technology, if you like.
Yes.
Because it literally just splatters and runs down everything now. And I think that's probably what makes it a lot more visceral. Like Resident Evil 6 had all this kind of head popping and bone crunching and stuff like that, but it didn't really leave a telling mark everywhere. Whereas the glorious sort of environments of the clinic, the walls are literally getting painted in this. And if you actually look at the technology now, it's all running down. It starts to run down surfaces and things. And I think that makes it a lot more of a visceral experience.
This could be great for environmental storytelling, and
I hope so. Yeah.
This could be. No, you're absolutely right. And again, you look at the technology. These zombies can be walking around anywhere, and if you just happen to kick them in the right place, it looks like it will acknowledge that the zombie hits a chest of drawers or whatnot and falls down, and then the game, that will trigger the prompt to be able to do the slam into the wall, into the head, into the wall. And it felt, as you said, very, very visceral, very loud, of Leon doing the stamp or whatever it was into the head whilst it's kind of sitting down. That's a cool function, because that means there's going to be variety in the gameplay, and every time you play it, I didn't get that last time. There might be some really interesting kills that you don't get, the first time round. Is there any other points people want to raise regarding the gameplay? Any other concerns? Replayability? Well, it's so hard to tell, isn't it? As you said, we're clutching a little bit on what we do know, because we don't know a lot about them. We'll come to the story elements in a minute. I just want to talk about what we have seen. Rob?
I just want to go back to the chainsaw thing. It's like, it's like, do we really need another chainsaw? And also, why is there a giant normal style chainsaw in a hospital? Would have been more interesting to see like medical saws, or that might have been an interesting twist on it. I don't know what else to say about that, but I just thought that was kind of weird. I was like, these are regular looking like household cutting down a tree chainsaws.
That's true. Yeah. Where'd you get them from? Yeah.
Whereas a hospital saw might have been more interesting, considering they're in a hospital.
I'm not sure about the weapon sharpening mechanic yet. We'll have to see.
Yes. We haven't
the
mentioned
idea that
yes.
Leon's just carrying a pocket full of whetstones is just it's silly. But I know games that have done this kind of stuff before. I mean, even Lies of P has a which is like the Pinocchio inspired Bloodborne style game, but that actually has a durability mechanic, and you have like a mechanical whetstone that you have to resharpen the weapons, or otherwise they get less effective. And it's kind of okay as a mechanic, but to be honest, it's more of just an inconvenience than anything. It's something that you tend to forget about until you realise you're not doing as much damage, and you go, "Oh, bollocks! I should have done that."
I saw there was that comic someone had drawn about like getting the enemies to wait. Well, hold on, I'm just sharpening. It was quite funny. Someone posted in the Discord, but I was like, yeah, that feels accurate.
Yeah, I mean, I don't mean to single you out, Nick, but you already mentioned earlier, and obviously in previous episodes, about things like Revelations 2 had too much going on.
Oh, God, yeah.
And things like a weapon sharpening mechanic is a really good example of just adding something potentially unnecessary on top of your already, quite complex game in terms of, melee combinations and trying to get the balance right. Like I say, Leon's gameplay across the more modern titles is a really addictive gameplay loop, and if they just keep bolting on more things that you have to interrupt that, then it potentially breaks the flow a little bit and can be...
It feels like to me like an extension of the damaged weapons thing, but without having the ability to implement that full system. So they went, what's the halfway between, we could give Leon an axe that he continues to sharpen to get it back. And it's like, yeah, the idea works, but if it doesn't work in the flow of gameplay, I mean, again, without being able to play it, it's kind of hard to tell. Maybe it'll work out perfectly, and it's just about picking your times to do it, but it could be interesting. When it's quieter, it would make sense, but in the middle of combat, it's quite unusual to be able to like, I'll just whip this out and quickly got it.
Got it. As long as it doesn't get too much in the way. As I said, I never really used the blocking technique in Remake 4. I found that a little bit too much. So there's no hope for me. The parrying, yeah. I couldn't. Yeah, I struggled really with Krauser fight. It was just no. But it doesn't look like there's much of that in this game. This looks more action orientated. Bam. No. I just hope. I hope, because we're in the same locations as Grace. John mentioned it, that I hope Leon's bit isn't completely devoid of exploration. And I think it's one of the great the great travesties of a lot of the real games. They're so linear. There's so much I want to see in Tall Oaks. I just don't get the opportunity. Same in Kajuju. I was like, this is quite good. No, gone. You're done. Oh, okay. I like Remake 4 at least making the kind of village and the lake section all very interconnected. And at some point you can kind of basically go back to the beginning, couldn't you? And before moving on to the castle, you could do a lot, and that they made it a lot more cohesive. I hope that if we have a taste with Grace, that there's all these rooms you can explore, and you can do that skulking around the mansion. And again, we've got themed keys, haven't we? We've got a big stalker enemy. It's ticking a lot of tenets of survival horror, George, as you would say. Grace's element. I just hope when we get to Leon, it doesn't turn into, oh look, that corridor I went down, well, that's now barricaded off, and I can only go down that corridor. I'd like to keep options open. I can appreciate, it's going to be a little bit more structured, but I just hope that you are rewarded in the way you are with Village. If you do go off the beaten track in your own time, you might find, in Village's case, treasure, or in that wonderful kind of lore file in Village where you found out about the similarities between the mold and the mutamosite. That was great. I hope that's still retained.
I think we'll see that sort of thing in Raccoon City. If the rumours about the Porsche thing are true and we can use that to visit different parts of the city, I think you'll get your optional sort of side quests then. But in terms of the earlier part of the game, from what we've seen, I think we briefly saw a map of the Rhodes Hill Centre in the gameplay, and it looked to be of similar size to the RPD, and the outside didn't seem to be infected, so we're not looking at like a citywide biohazard here. Whatever's going on is contained to the building, so I think that's just going to be a solid hub area. Some doors you won't be able to get into as Grace, but you probably will as Leon, and vice versa. So I think there'll be plenty of puzzles and exploration in that section for sure.
See, I'd seen one good theory, and I can't honestly remember who it was, but the actual gun, the Requiem Magnum, is actually going to be the bridge point between the two campaigns, if you like, and that gun will not just be handed to Grace, but it will be given back to Leon, and you actually follow the gun's journey through Requiem, which, it could actually be a thing, I suppose. Like, you might have to use Grace's gameplay to assemble, to do all the mixing with the blood to create the special ammo, and then she can hand that gun back when it's Leon's section, and then he has additional resources to, dispatch his villains with the magic bullets or whatever they are. I mean, it's a neat theory. There's definitely more to that gun than meets the eye.
Mm-hmm. Talking of villains, we did see a new one in the showcase, which looked. Is it too easy to be Victor?
Did we see a new one?
We did.
Are you talking about the big troll thing?
The bit, yeah, he's got a cave
right.
troll.
Yeah, I think that's Victor. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was going to say, I think he's your Dimitrescu or Jack Baker character. He's been in a lot of the marketing, but he's only going to be like a sub boss. I think you'll dispatch him in the first part of the game.
Okay. And still nothing new on who we thought was, well, not theorized to be Lisa Trevor as well. So I don't think it's Elisa.
I don't think it's
so hope it's not. I've seen other people make that suggestion. It would just be Christ, Pyramid Head turning up in Homecoming, looking at the camera. Do you remember me? I really hope not. I got quite concerned when somebody who kind of isolated some of the noises that enemy makes, and it was suggesting that it sounded exactly like Lisa Trevor's voice.
It was the same stuff.
I mean, the only thing I would say is the reason that experience was so affecting in Remake is because when after, that was the point, not before, but after we heard, those haunting cries and we see that poor mutated soul, we then get the files, the correspondence between her and her mother, Jessica, and then the whole tragedy unfolds, and you realize, what that little girl's experienced. And so what more can we be told? That story's ended. We got, obviously with Wesker's report, we got all the additional information. So if it was to be Lisa Trevor just turning up, just almost to look at the camera and hey, do you remember me, kids? What lore kind of what backstory are we going to get to make that appear? If it is a second appearance,
Capcom have confirmed it's not her.
Oh, have they? Okay.
Yeah, the sounds were just a placeholder, but I'm sure she'll have a similar backstory. I mean, she's grown up in this clinic. We know Victor took it over when Umbrella went under, so she's probably got a similar backstory in that. She's been experimented on with this Elpis for numerous years, and I'm sure there'll be files that'll explain the suffering she's had to go through.
What do we think Elpis is then? So let's start our discussion on what we think might happen in terms of lore and theories. Is Elpis, is it the T Elpis virus? Is the Elpis virus what causes these zombies?
I think it's something to do with the outbreak, the ending of Outbreak, where the government have set up shop in the ruins of Raccoon City, and they are working on something to create some kind of universal cure. And Leon knows about it, but at some point, something with it has gone wrong. And
Right.
I think, it's clear Victor's infected with it, and I actually think, going out on a limb here, I think Leon's infected with the same thing, but just at a much earlier stage. And I think Leon has been infected before the game even starts. I don't think this is a Remake 4 situation where we play the opening level and something happens to Leon and then he starts to get sick. I think this is something he's been living with for a while. And I think his secret relates to, this project starting out good and it's possibly turned bad, and he's sort of kept a blind eye to it all. And I think another reason he harbours a bit of guilt is because he is semi-responsible for Alyssa's death. I think whatever she was doing at that hotel 8 years ago was because Leon sent her there. So he feels partially responsible for her death, and I think that could cause a bit of friction between Leon and Grace later in the game when she finds that out.
Ooh.
And we get that image of Leon looking at the computer. He knows what he's infected with. He knows he possibly hasn't got long left. And I think he's realised after all these years of fighting bioterrorism that has he been on the wrong side all along, with the government and all this stuff they've been doing. So I still don't know what else it is, but I think it's something that started out best intentions to sort of help people who are infected with the T virus and whatnot, but somewhere along the line, it's either been sabotaged or something's happened and it's turned into some sort of deadly pathogen. It might be a way of sort of, you said before about the zombies retaining some of their humanity. It might have started off to try and reverse the zombie process, and that's why, we get zombies acting out the previous lives because they don't have as much brain degradation as previous zombies had. Elpis might be something, I know it sounds like pure fantasy, but it might be something they've tried to do to reverse the zombie process. Because we already know that the infected's blood is special. Grace needs to collect it. And if you go back to Daylight, we think Grace might be special because of Alyssa's connection to Daylight, and one of the components of Daylight was the Thanatos TyranT's blood.
Yep.
So, I think it's going to be something along those lines. I could be completely wrong, but I think the biggest shocker is we're going to find out that Leon's had this thing for maybe even several years before the game starts.
Do you think it might also tie into what Benford was trying to reveal in 6?
Yeah. I think they might retroactively say that Benford was going to reveal something about this Elpis. Yeah, they'll go along there. It's difficult to say because clearly big portion of the game's going to happen in Raccoon City, I think, and there's going to be all kinds of crazy shit go on there. That's why they're keeping absolutely all of it under wraps. I think what we've seen so far, these opening 2 levels in the care centre and the hotel, are just a bit of a red herring, really, for the real story that'll start in Raccoon City. And I think when we see the car travelling towards the city, I think that's Leon and Grace in the car. And I possibly think we'll take over as Grace again when Leon's infection, gets too bad for him to continue. And he probably has to take some kind of medication to keep him going. I don't think he'll die or anything like that. I think Grace's blood will ultimately save him at the end. But yeah, I just think something's telling me that this is something Leon's lived with for a long time. I don't know why. Really I've got nothing to base it on, but that's why.
It's
he's wearing gloves. He's trying to cover up his neck. I just think, yeah, and we know it's early on in the game where he goes to that centre and he's already got the marks on his neck. So yeah, I think something's happened in the past.
I like it. I think there's a lot of good points there. I'm intrigued to know and whether they'll even address what makes this virus different. If it is all the same virus, and it clearly based on the T virus in universe, we've got the T virus vaccine from Degeneration. And I know with the CGI movies, they always make it slightly different, so the vaccines aren't quite as good. But if it's reversing the zombification process, we've already had the A virus as well, and all that nonsense where people. Oh, sorry about that, chap. I was just biting your ribs. No, okay. In the Vendetta movie, but I'd love to see all these connections to other games, and that idea that they're going to change what Benford was trying to reveal. That's nice because that could tie in quite nicely with Infinite Darkness as well, and what's going on with Raccoon. History tells me this is not going to happen. these games where you think, oh, it's a good opportunity to really expand. Even you could take out, if you took 7 out of Village, apart from Ethan's little bit and Evelyn, I mean, they may as well be completely separate games. It wasn't really a true sequel in terms of the storyline. You know, it didn't follow up with the connections. It didn't follow up with Blue Umbrella. It was all very self-contained, and I worry that this is gonna. We're going down the same path again. We've got a new virus. We've got new effects. You know, we've got slightly different zombies, and it's just going to be tokenism to references to something else. Whereas what you've presented, John, is quite a really nice link to Daylight, and you know they won't mention the Thanatos Tyrant. They won't mention that, but you know they might say because Elisa was infected with Daylight, and you're special. You know, there's an opportunity there to bring in a lot of old lore that would really satisfy us fans of you know the old fans, if you like. But also for any new fan coming in, they're not going to be bamboozled by it, going, "What the hell? I don't need to know that." You don't need to know all the details, but in the files, they could really elevate it to something quite special.
Definitely, and I think. When we do go to Raccoon City, I think a lot of that old lore will come into play. I think we'll find out what's happened to the other Outbreak characters. Maybe not all of them, but people like Yoko. You know, we already know Grace is special. She's got some kind of special blood. And, you know, the Daylight thing is the obvious way to go with that.
I wonder with your theory or idea, how, because we know that Victor takes over an old Umbrella thing. I want to know what he was doing. If you think it's a government project.
Well, it might be sort of like how you know the Allies recruited Nazi soldiers after the war to help them on secret programs. It might be the fact the government have recruited Umbrella researchers to help them, and you know they've either gone rogue or whatnot. But my instinct tells me that Elpis started out with good intentions, and it's been sabotaged or whatever, and it's been changed into something bad, or maybe someone in the government, a Simmons-like character, got greedy and decided, let's make it a bioweapon instead. And I think Leon had some sort of knowledge about it, and that's why he harbours a sense of guilt. I think the connections will be in this, but I don't think the mould will be.
No.
And I think because the story ties to Umbrella, we'll probably get some reference to Blue Umbrella, but I don't think they'll be front and centre in this at all either. And the same with the BSAA cliffhanger. I think we might get some vague mention in the files that, you know, the BSAA have been suspended because they're under investigation pertaining to some, you know, operational allegations or something like that. They'll probably address it, but they won't give us a definitive answer, I don't think, because it's not the story of this game.
Yeah, I think as well, if there is this kind of fast travel element, obviously they're pushing the Porsche thing. It's not like it's just going to... It's clearly not going to be something that just appears in the opening FMV. Leon arrives in a Porsche. They wouldn't put this amount of effort into it if it was just a brief cameo.
I think it's just going to be a bigger version of, you know, the section in Resident Evil 5 and Resident Evil 4 Remake when you're on the boat and you can sort of visit all the optional places. I think it'll be something similar to that, but obviously in the ruins of Raccoon City.
All right, we'll put this in my bingo card. Just to shut everyone up again, they're going to put the clock tower and the park in it. as new sections.
Yeah, I mean they've clearly done a big retcon here with how much the city has survived, and it's just whether they're going to expect us to just accept it and get on with it, or whether they're going to try and come up with some sort of in-law explanation that it's maybe been, you know, one big cover-up. I don't know.
And I mean, there's no doubt that we've already seen it's the remake RPD. If there are other areas that we go to, and if there is anything to do with Birkin still floating around, I suspect we could end up at Nest.
Well, all the jokes we've had about Nest 3, we will be going to Nest 3.
Yeah,
we've got to be.
Yeah, I'm still not sure how I'm going to cope with this. This is something that we feared years ago with Remake 2, with you know, the idea about Dr. Bard and all this. Is he part of the same timeline? And I think it'll be an interesting discussion about where we all sit. I know you don't have much of a problem with it, John. You said I do.
No, that's completely fair. I do get it, but in some ways you could argue it's counterbalanced by the fact that they're progressing the plot of Outbreak, which we know can't happen in the remake universe. It just doesn't fit. So it's Capcom appealing to both audiences. The old fans who enjoyed Outbreak, and the new fans who turned up when the remakes landed.
Yeah.
I think it's an interesting blend. They're not trying to ignore, one or the other. They are trying to cater to everyone.
Sean, did you?
I was going to say, with regards to like a potential Nest facility, it's really, really interesting that the only other time they've showed Raccoon City from that first trailer is a slightly revised shot of the crater with a new building there now. It's taken a few people to like zoom in on that image, but there is now like a facility on the edge of the crater that wasn't there in the very first debut trailer. So it's clearly something that they've modified and worked on, and that's probably the facility will be going to, which may well be a reimagined version of the facility you see in the post-credit scene. The facility that originally started out as that tower on tall stilts expanded and become this experimental facility.
Yeah, and I think we might find out some more information about William Birkin's life as well, which only solidifies the Sherry theory for me. I think Sherry has replaced Hunnigan for a very specific reason, and the fact that we're going back to Raccoon City is, a big clue.
My bingo card moment, and I'm going to state it here and now, that if it is Sherry, there will be, like you say, something to do with Birkin. And my most outlandish theory is, if there is some DLC, I think it might be Sherry as a playable character. I think at some point in the game, she will go to Raccoon. Because like you say, John, it's too specific. She's in that role to not do anything with her. Like, this is her triumphant return, if it is her. They've even gone to the effort of getting the same voice actress back from Resident Evil 6 to play her. To just have her benched in a facility on comms for the entire game feels wasted. When they're going back to Raccoon, they could find something to do with her father that's maybe survived. It's a way of giving her closure in a really, really... I fully expect by the end of the game she will be physically present in Raccoon with Leon.
Yeah, I agree.
There's scope within the existing lore for to change perhaps Birkin. I mean, we know he's a bit of a megalomaniac, as they all were, but at the end he was defecting to the American government to give the G virus. But I'm trying to think his intentions.
Yeah, I'm not saying he's going to still be alive or anything like that.
No. But he's perceived as the bad guy. We got the internal blame within Umbrella for causing the outbreak in Raccoon City, and he's probably not. Everyone knows him as being, in universe as being, he's a nasty man, Umbrella. But as there's an opportunity to change that perception, I just wonder what we know so far. There is scope. I think they could say, he's planning to defect to the American government, so he could bring down Umbrella. Or I don't know, he's a hero or something. I don't know.
Well, if you delve deep into the lore, the whole G-Virus project was an attempt to upgrade humanity rather than just create bioweapons. It was the fact Umbrella wanted bioweapons that caused that conflict between them in the first place.
Yeah.
So, like you say, there is scope for Birkin to be absolved to a certain extent.
Whether Capcom do this, I don't know. Talking of Sherry in terms of legacy characters, do you think there could be any other legacy characters making an appearance?
Well, Capcom have hinted at it, so it wouldn't surprise me. I don't think we'll get anything major, but we'll probably get some sort of Barry-esque Resident Evil 3 sequence where one of them turns up in a helicopter at the end. Probably Claire. I'd like to see Jill have a cameo in this, but it's difficult to say because they're keeping so much under wraps, and they must be doing that for a reason.
I think, I think if they are going to Raccoon, they should bring back the Big Four. It's upsetting that they didn't. If they're going to go to we've discussed before when it was first announced. I do think we need a compelling reason to go back to Raccoon City, and I'm looking forward to discovering what that is. Government politics.
From a lore point of view, this has given me many pinches of excitement because, as we alluded to in the last podcast, you only get this. Like, I'm almost sad that this big mystery and this, like I said earlier, this spitballing of ideas and everything like that is only going to be around for another month. Years ago, we'd have to wait 4 years from announcement to actually getting the game in our hands. We've only had a fraction of months, really. And, it's going to be over in 4 or 5 weeks' time. And then it's going to be inevitable remakes again, isn't it? This is what
But
means savour this. Don't look to
Yeah.
spoil this experience for yourself, guys. Enjoy it.
I was going to say, it's way that Capcom's definitely moved towards, is revealing games with a much shorter, less than kind of about a year or less time frame. And I think it's because they got essentially burnt out on a lot of hype of games early in that kind of era where they would announce something and it would take 4 or 5 years to come out, and development cycles are a lot longer and things change. Obviously, this game in itself has changed development, as they showed off in their first video where they showed an older version where it was a bit more of an open world with Leon in it, and so I think it's one of those things where it's kind of protecting both sides, making sure that they don't set up wrong expectations. I mean, we've seen it even in Village's promo material and bits of Resident Evil 4's original launch trailer stuff where things didn't even make it into the remake final game, with which obviously people have found the cut content now recently. Yeah, it's to be expected.
Village. We missed the siege and the Elena bit all gone.
And obviously, the modders have found the Ashley data. The playable Ashley prologue.
Chapter 0. Yeah.
I think this is actually quite transparent of Capcom, because Capcom aren't usually overly transparent about their pre-builds and stuff like that. And obviously, Resident Evil has been very infamous with certain games having dramatically different versions, like 1.5 and the Devil May Cry version of 4. That it's actually been quite surprising that they've shown now 2 prototypes of RE9, that weird multiplayer one a few months ago, and then the prototype version of this where Leon was the main character. I just think it's quite unusual and quite refreshing to actually see it. In a studio that doesn't like to talk about unseen versions of game terribly much.
I think it helped. It didn't help having that leak back in 2020, which kind of revealed Resident Evil 4 remake, and that there was called Apocalypse at that point, which was obviously this prototype version of this Leon open world game, and that have changed over this time frame. Probably didn't help. So at least they've acknowledged those two in some respects.
I think we're coming towards the end. What I want to finish our preview on is theories, and specifically one, not tin pot theory from each of you, but something you would expect to see and what you like to see in an RE9, whether it be lore or gameplay. Let's start with you, Sean. What would you like? What do you think? What do you think you're going to see that we haven't really discussed, and then perhaps what you really would love to see is a kind of dream. If you were in charge, I'm putting the stars TyranT stamp on this.
Well, I've obviously stated very clearly my sheer desperation that my theory has to come true of Sherry, otherwise my heart is going to be broken, because I'm so fully committed to this idea now. I'm never been so certain. Theory I've had on this podcast over the years, and I know I've had many outlandish ones. I've never been so certain like I am this one that it's her, and obviously she'll be present at some point in the game, and if there is a DLC, I think it will be hers. Beyond that, my most ridiculous tinfoil hat one is that Victor Gideon is now retroactively the person in the chopper at the end of Death's Door.
Oh wow!
They'll tie off that loose end once and for all. And will there be other legacy cast members returning? I mean, Leon's never been in a numbered game without Ada. But I genuinely don't see a place for her in this story as it is at the moment. But again, we know so little. The Victor Gideon one is my crazy tinfoil hat one, and the one I want to see the most beyond Sherry is I really want to see the trip back to the RPD be quite PTSD triggering for Leon. I think it would be really interesting if he acknowledges that this is the place where Leon the rookie died, and what was born was someone new, someone who's had a lifetime of fighting these monsters, and he just kind of misses that rookie that came to that city so hopeful one day. I just think that could be a really interesting avenue to explore one of the more, this is going to sound awful, but one of the more cardboard characters of the series. Leon's been essentially quite no nonsense through his appearances. He's not really been allowed a terrific amount of depth. And you get the occasional moments, like at the end of Damnation, where he, switches off the TV and you can see he's been drinking. And there's always been hints of that. And Infinite Darkness has a great thing at the end where he shows more commitment to the government than he does to Claire, but that's because he wants to try and protect Claire from it. like if they explore that kind of side to it, I think it could be really exciting and really interesting, and an angle that makes the character really work and just totally justifies why they've chosen him over the likes of, say, like Jill being in this or something like that. If they've really got something to say through Leon's appearance, then I'm totally on board for him being in this.
George, over to you. What do you think? What do you think they're going to show, or what you think is going to happen? Could be anything we discussed, and a kind of crazy, not crazy theory, but something you know what you would really love to see personally.
Mikey, I haven't really got anything much more I can add than what I've already said. Just the fact that I was enthused and excited by the tone and the type of gameplay that we got with the grace sections. I doubt, but I'd love to see more of the Outbreak characters turning up. Kevin Ryman perhaps. That would be pretty awesome. In terms of crazy theories, I just wait and see. But I have to say, I was brought a little bit more back on track when I saw the grace sections, and yeah, we'll have to see. I really not much more I can add, I'm afraid.
Fingers crossed, though. Romby, what about you?
At this point, I'm just wanting some more continuity and concept, if that makes sense. Like, I find it very frustrating that they kind of do treat everything standalone, as if they have to worry about the fact there'd be new fans jumping on board with this, when you can explain things in media res. Like, they need to learn how to do this a bit more, and I'm kind of a little bit frustrated at the constant lack of dangling plot points that continue to build up and never get resolved over these games. So it would be nice to see some of this actually start to connect in this game. So if I could get something that I would like, it would be that it starts to actually put together some elements of various things from the past in a certain way, and that Raccoon City is the connective tissue to potentially do that. So it would be nice to see those things. There's nothing specific. At this point, I would just rather see something than nothing at all, because if this just ends up being yet another self-contained villainous plot, which potentially leads to more unanswered questions at the end of it, it's just going to be a continuing frustration of not ever finishing any of these narrative stories. And it's about time you start wrapping these things up. You can't just keep leaving constant dangling threads on the idea that, new gamers jumping on this, they don't want to play the other games. It's like, I think the sales at this point, particularly of the most recent several games, remakes included, would tell you that most people that have jumped onto this franchise are playing most of these games, and maybe starting to tie some of these things up would be good. Pie in the Sky, well, gosh, yeah, I would be nice to see some more connection to Outbreak in the Raccoon City narrative in regards to having these characters. There's got to be a reason why they've chosen the characters they have. But other than that, I don't know. It's a tough one, because I don't believe that they are going to connect or wrap things up more than they even need to, unfortunately, because of the way it's been in the past. So, yeah, I don't know. I hope so.
I agree with you there, and from my personal view, I would love to see some resolution with Blue Umbrella connections. To me, if we're continuing with the idea that this is the third in the trilogy of the kind of first-person trilogy, it has the hallmarks of the action trilogy of 4, 5, 6. So 4 and 5 flowed quite nicely. 6, suddenly new virus, C virus, nothing to do with Plagueis. And in some ways I wish it had. And where history is repeating itself a little bit again, I think, in that we've got 7 and 8 mold, nice, and now we've got Elpis, probably a T virus, but you'll probably see lots of reused animations with regards to the baddies, and they're basically the same as what in the molded, in the same way the Juavo was exactly the same as the Magini and the Ganados before them. So I'm hoping, in light of that and the distinction with the mold not being there, that there is something to do with the Blue Umbrella dangling point, with them. If Blue Umbrella are not good guys, at least if we believe Umbrella Corps and things like that. So I'm hoping we get to see some resolution to that, and I hope they're behind it, and I hope that Victor is not that self-contained, just going on his own looking for revenge or something, because we've done that. We keep doing it, whether it be in a CGI movie or the latest game. Miranda should have been someone from the Connections. That's my point. So that's what I'd like to see. Pie in the Sky, unsurprisingly, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like there to be a connection to Gaiden. I don't think people are surprised by that. The memes of Leon and Gaiden's infection, or the BOW, I find very, very funny, and it's good to get Gaiden back in the communal wellspring of accessibility. But that would really be pie in the sky. And it doesn't necessarily have to directly reference it. There could be a file that just has Leon Kennedy, DSO agent, known to get involved, and previous infections, Plaga, T-virus, something like that, and you go, there it is, Starlight, must be. It's not going to happen, but that would be my dream thing, just to have that, and I'd be like, yes. Why not? John, what about you? What's your think is going to happen and what you really hope is going to happen?
Similar to Rob, really. I just want this to be the Resident Evil 5 of the Resident Evil 2 plot lines. Resident Evil 5, it tied off Wesker, Spencer, Umbrella really nicely. And, I would like this to do the equivalent for Leon and whatever's left to mine out of the Raccoon City story. Rob took the words out of my mouth, really. I don't want to finish this with more questions than answers. I want there to be some sort of resolution. I want to sort of finish this game, and if Leon walks off into the sunset and we don't see him again, I want to be fine with that. But in terms of what I actually really want from the story, it's difficult to say because I don't really know what else they can do with Raccoon City. I just hope whatever makes it so important to do this massive retcon with it not being completely destroyed, I just hope it's worth it. In terms of the gameplay, I'm not really that bothered. I've got enough trust in Capcom now to, be comfortable that they're going to deliver a quality product. I just hope they keep the game nice and grounded. We don't have any ridiculous enemies. We're not driving away in a Porsche with a bloody big, Tyrannosaurus Rex mutant fucking chasing us down the streets. I just don't want any of that shit. But I'm just excited. This is as good as Resident Evil 7 and 8 were. There could have been, new IPs. They just had a sprinkling of Resident Evil lore on them towards the end. Whereas this, it feels like we're back in the sort of late 90s era of storytelling and speculation. We're going back to Raccoon City. The story is all about Umbrella. We've got Leon, the character who's been there since pretty much the start. We've got Sherry. And yeah, if I could have one wish, I'd like to see some legacy characters turn up. I'd really like to see Jill back in Raccoon City.
Thank you very much, gents. Always a pleasure. There are speculations. We'll reconvene in the next podcast to see how well we've done, or not. I don't think our track record is particularly good with these kind of things. I think we get a few now and again, but we'll compare notes when we come back. But I hope everyone has enjoyed our final look ahead, our final preview of Requiem. We now turn our attention to this podcast edition of Neptune's Biohazard Quiz.
The ultimate test of Resident Evil knowledge returns. 100 podcasts later.
Jesus Christ. That's a question, isn't it?
I'm getting a big fat 0 this week.
Yeah, I'm not going to get any of these.
I'm not going to say anything because I know that you will just change the answer or something. Like, you don't even know what the answers are.
Can I just ask, have you had all of these questions independently verified?
And still things don't quite go to plan.
You only have to probably get it right.
Welcome to Neptune's Biohazard Quiz. Batman. Stars TyranT. George Trevor. Robbie McGregor. Mr. Spencer. Neptune Biohazard Quiz.
Welcome one and all. We've got lots of points available in this podcast. I've been generous with my scoring policies. So if everyone can clear their notepads, you can open. Everyone can clear their desktops. They can open up their notepads. We've got 5 questions. Here we go. Question number 1, potentially worth 3 points. This one. In Resident Evil Village, in order to make the 3 flavored matite, you need fish, poultry, and meat. You knew that. You're thinking, I know this one. I know that. But in what quantities of the fish, poultry, and meat do you need to make the matite? 3 points up for grabs, though. Question number 2. I think you'll like this one. Can you name the 3 locations where you can pick up the bow gun in the original Resident Evil 2? Another 3 points up for grabs. Question number 3. It's a welcome return of the Where Am I round. Listen carefully. Oh no, I have just been attacked by the gulp worm. And to my shock and dismay, all the conventional doors are locked in my immediate vicinity. Thankfully, there is another exit which I take and descend. No nemesis here. In the new area, I feel I am safe before exiting into a new room that looks like it has a lift or 2. Ignoring these, I leave through the only door, run across a long passage, and into a new room, where I perform a U-turn and head into another new room. There, I ascend into where? We need that location. Question number 4. In what biohazard would you find the Barracuda, B-O-W? So in what biohazard title would you find the infected Barracuda, B-O-W? And finally, question number 5. Oh, what's that noise? Oh, non-canon corner making another welcome return. That's the non-canon alarm. In honor of our review, in Resident Evil Survival Unit, you play as the operative. He is university educated, but what degree does he hold? That's how deep Survival Unit goes, ladies and gentlemen. What degree does the operative hold? They're the 5 questions. Join us after this and we'll run through those answers.
Dr. Gideon has been expecting you.
So, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We've got lots of points available. How well has everyone done? So, question number 1 is in RE Village. In order to make the 3 flavored matite, you need the fish, poultry, and meat. But in what quantities? Let's start with Romby. I'm getting out a pen and paper because I'll forget what everyone puts. Right, Romby, what's your answer? How much fish? How much poultry? How much meat?
Fish, I'm going 3. Poultry 2. Meat 3. I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. George Trevor?
Of all the questions you have asked over the last 23 years that I've not known the answer to, this is probably top of all. I mean, you could tell me this isn't even in Resident Evil, and I've no idea. I'm not even going to guess because
guess some numbers. How much fish?
3, 2, 1. I mean, I just have no idea.
3, 2, 1. No, it's fine. It's fine.
Leave me alone.
Batman.
I have absolutely no idea. I didn't bother with any of this shit in Village.
Did you not?
Yeah,
oh, it's good fun.
No. 3, 2, 3.
3, 2, 3. Stars TyranT.
3 fish, 2 poultry, 1 meat. I sound confident, but I'm not. It's a complete guess.
Ladies and gentlemen, there's points all round. There's points all round, but what? So the answer is 4 fish, 2 poultry, 3 meat. That means 2 points to Rob, 2 points to Batman, 1 point for George Trevor, and 1 point for Stars TyranT.
How did I get a point?
That is very good.
I don't even understand how I got the point, but that's great. Thank you.
Pure nonsense. Love it.
Ridiculous.
That should be our new slogan. Welcome to Neptune's Biohazard Quiz. Pure nonsense. Right. Bit more grounded. Number 2 is what are the 3 locations you can find the bow gun in Resident Evil 2? We'll start with George for this one.
You're saying there's 3, are you?
Yes.
I can only think of 2. I know you. So in the original, all this nonsense with remakes. We're talking about the original Resident Evil 2.
That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
So you find Robert Kendo, obviously, and then depending on what scenario, you can find it in the STARS office. I've got no idea. I just almost making me question those locations. But I'm going to say it's another trick question.
You stick
There's
to
only
those two?
It's only two that I can think of.
Okay. Batman?
Well, I'm confident here because I literally played Resident Evil 2 last night.
Oh, really? Oh.
Kendo gun shop, the locker in the STARS office, and the sort of rear boiler room shed thing at the back of the RPD, where the valve handle is in certain scenarios.
STARS TyranT?
I was so confident, but now John being even more confident got me. I had written down Kendo, which I know is correct, the back shed where the ink ribbon is, and I thought you got it in the main hall if you played as Claire Scenario B and the grenade launcher was in the STARS office. Have I got that the wrong way round?
Don't know.
So my answer is I'm going to stick with what I've written down. So the back shed, Kendo's gun shop, and the main hall desk near the save box, iron box. No,
Romby?
Right.
Yeah, I know it'd be. Yeah.
I had the same three: Kendo, pick up, insert the shotgun, STARS, locker, and then the back boiler shed thing by the garage at the back of the RPD.
There's points for everyone, but how many points? The correct answers are Kendo gun shop, the outside shed with a valve handle, and the STARS office. 3 points to Romby, 3 points to Batman, 2 points for GT, 2 points for STARS TyranT.
Where'd you get the grenade launcher then? How's my memory failing me?
You can pick up the grenade launcher in the. It is it B scenario in the STARS office? I can't remember, but that is.
I think you are right in the If the bore gun is in the boiler room, then the grenade launcher is in the shed. Not the shed, the locker in the STARS office. I think you're right. I think you can get the grenade launcher in the main hall.
I think that's in the second scenario.
Yeah.
In the B scenario.
Points there. Good points, everyone. Question number 3. Do you want me to do it again? So the where am I? Oh no, I've just been attacked by the Goldworm, and to my shock and dismay, all the conventional doors are locked. Thankfully, there is another exit which I take and descend. No nemesis in here. In the new area, I feel safe before exiting into a new room that looks to have a lift or two. Ignoring this, I leave through the only door, run across a long passage into a new room where I perform a U-turn into another new room. Here I ascend into where? Batman, it's your favourite game. Where am I?
I don't know. It's where you move the tank, isn't it, and go underground. Oh dear. Oh, bollocks. I don't know. I honestly don't know. Underground save room near the hangar.
The underground save, yeah. GT?
This is my favourite round too. I got the last time we did this, I got it right, but that was because it was in the Spencer mansion, and I have no idea. I can't think. I just don't know.
Don't know?
No,
guess? No guess?
I can't think. No, I just cannot think. No, sorry.
Romby?
No, I've got no guess either. I lost track halfway through.
Oh no!
Somewhere, know where we started, got about partway through, and then I'm like, I can't remember which doors are available exits in certain rooms. So it's been a while. No luck.
STARS TyranT?
I'm gutted because I used to know this layout like the back of my hand, but I don't play it enough now to retain it. But I'm trying to think where like all the ascensions, and I think you're actually in the sky heading toward Antarctica. I think the room you've ended up in is the hangar. And when you say you ascend, you've literally gone into the sky.
Is correct, yes.
Wow, well done.
In the airplane.
Do you know what you did it? Do you know what did it? It was when you said the U-turn, and I was trying to think. Well, what is the U-shaped corridor? And the only one I could think of is the one with the spiders in that you come up through the ladder through a
No, I'm in the fish tank room.
What?
I'm in the fish tank room. Go round there into the other room where Wesker releases the hunters. And then you're on the lift.
Of course it is, yeah.
And then you go on the lift. The only thing, then I ascend into where? And in there's a little lift, and you go up into the airplane. So you've got there by default. The correct
for being wrong.
For being wrong.
Only in this quiz can you get it completely wrong.
I'll give you that. Well done, Sean. Question at number 4. In what biohazard title would you find the infected barracuda? STARS, we'll start with you. You're on a high.
I'm kicking myself because I have no idea. And I'm looking at the games on my shelf. I'm cheating by looking at the games on my shelf. And I just... Because it's piranhas in Revelations, isn't it? So it's not that. It was fucking barracudas. It's got to be. I'm just going to say file 2. It'll be some random enemy in the
Outbreak file
Wild
2
scenario or something. Outbreak file 2. Yeah, I'll say that.
Romby?
I have no idea, which tells me it's probably some either non-canon or document or comic or something. So I have no freaking clue.
It's definitely not a non-canon thing because that's not part of the non-canon corner.
Okay, then it's probably a comic or something that I haven't read. I have no idea. So I have no clue. No clue.
George Trevor?
Got no idea. I'm just guessing Resident Evil 6.
Resident Evil 6. Okay. Batman?
Heavenly Island.
Oh, for fuck's sake.
Correct. It is Heavenly Island, yes. Yes. Picked up by fishermen at the very beginning, I believe.
It should just be my default answer anytime, Nick, that I don't recognise it. Is it Heavenly Island again? Is there zombies in bikinis again?
Yeah, it's that one.
Yeah,
it is that,
is that one. Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
Well done, John. Well done. Well done. And finally, question number 5 was the welcome return of non-canon corner. In survival units, the operative is university educated, but what degree does he hold? John can go last because he's played it. Stars, did you pick this up?
I didn't, and so just as a random, and this is a totally random guess, forensic pathology.
Okay, interesting. Romby?
I have no idea. Journalism.
Journalism. George Trevor?
Well, just based on what you said earlier, I was actually going to say pathology was going to be my guess.
Okay. Batman, did you know?
I didn't know. I'm just going to have to guess chemistry.
The answer is bioengineering. Interesting. Oh, that's close, isn't it? That's close. What do you think?
It's not correct.
It's not the same. It's not the same.
They're not the same.
No, Sean has spoken.
No, I'm not spoken. But no, to me, being correct is literally nailing it word for word. You know, that's a very specific answer.
Yeah. He's a bioengineer.
We're not talking car manufacturers here, Nick.
No, we're not. Interestingly, he gets tested on at the beginning. He's been tested by Umbrella, and he's got something special about his reaction to whatever they've injected him with.
I love how we just even calls into question just sort of the principle on what actually is correct. You know, this philosophical debate we're now going to get into. Like, what is it to be correct?
Whenever it's a mobile game, he just reams off all this law. But it's like whenever he's talking about like a numbered title, it's like, yeah, the thing in the whatever happens to Summit. But mobile game, it's like, yes, he was injected with this at 7 p.m. on the 23rd, and yes, this leads to this, and she does this, and yes, it's a wonderful game.
If anyone needs to know the integrity of this quiz, like Nick's just given us an opportunity there that if our debate was strong enough, we could have probably won this fucking quiz through a good debate. You know, I genuinely think if my argument was sound, I could have actually twisted forensic pathology into bioengineering through some arbitrary random bit of trivia, and then he'd go, "Well, I think you're right there. Absolutely, 5 points."
The lawyer and me, I like a good debate.
Yeah.
Well, let's have a look at those final scores. It's high scoring because of the extra points. In last place with 3 points, it's George Trevor.
I'm still happy I've got 3 points. I'll take that. That's fine.
Followed by Stars TyranT with 4. Yeah.
Thank you, Nick.
Yep,
thank you.
Happy with that. In second is Rob with 5 points.
Complete fluke. Thank you. Thank you.
That's okay, but this podcast winner with 6 points, it's the Batman.
Oh, good old obscure Japanese manga. Never lets me down.
It never does. It never does. That's the end of the Neptune's Biohazard quiz. Join us next time where we'll have some more questions. We are nearing the end now of our final preview of Resident Evil Requiem. We hope everyone has enjoyed it, and the quiz, of course, always a nice way to end a discussion. Coming up next, of course, is our review of Resident Evil 9. We hope to get that out as quickly as it can. We will be playing through it on release day, but we're gonna make sure we get it completed, and then take our time. I think with the review, make sure it's a good one. This will then follow the usual format, if you want to call it that. So we'll do our review, and we'll be looking at the highs, lows, what we like, what we didn't like, all the things we kind of talked about today. Really. After that, we'll then open it up to our listeners with our community call-in. They are always fascinating, and I'll put another call out for that in the next podcast so people can get their 2-minute reviews in and discussion points they want us to raise. Because as we always say, there's always points we have completely missed. And I suspect the next one's going to be quite a meaty review. And then depending on the lore, we may do another lore podcast afterwards, a kind of aftermath, which we did with 7 and 8 as well. So where does the story go from here? What are the consequences of Elpis and Requiem and so far. And that can be a nice dedicated podcast, which will kind of actually end our Requiem coverage until the Inevitable Story DLC. So plenty to be looking forward to from us over this point. On that note, I would like to thank everyone for listening. It is goodbye from me, Neptune.
Goodbye from me, Batman.
It's my final goodbye from me if it's not Sherry Birkin. Goodbye.
It's goodbye from me, Josh Trevor. My final goodbye for is Lisa Trevor.
Jesus Christ, people. So depressing. Goodbye from me, Robbie. Jesus.